Welcome everyone to another episode of the BizBlend podcast. As always, I'm your host Sana, and now just think, um, you have worked your way to the top. You have collected the titles, the achievements, the applause. But when the noise fades at night, you're left with sleepless hours, a racing mind, and a body carrying more than just weight. It's carrying the burden of burnout. Listeners, my guest today knows the story because she's lived it. Dr. Lizette Warner was once the chief science officer of a global corporation until one day her world and her health collapsed under the pressure. But what could have been the end became the beginning. She not only healed her nervous system and shed 50 pounds, but also rewired her entire life and career. And today on BizPlan, she's here with us, not just to talk about burnout, which is right now, a buzzword, but as a system failure. And more importantly, to share how to beat it. So if you have ever felt stuck between rusting out and burning out, or wondered if even there is a way to succeed without losing yourself, this conversation is for you. So let's quickly dive in. And Dr. Lizard, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Anna, it is great to be here and be here with your listeners. And I'm so excited for the conversation that we're about to have because it's an important one.
Absolutely. And first of all, congratulations to you because you did really turn around the things in there. Very, very inspiring. So we'll dive deep into your journey. But before that, very interestingly, you describe burnout not just as exhaustion, but as a system failure. Now, that's something, that's going to really, really, ignite a lot of curiosity in our listeners, and it's doing for me as well. So what's the difference between rusting out, like staying stuck in something that drains us slowly, and then burning out, going down in flames? And why do you believe both come at such a hidden cost?
Yeah, it's a great question. So burnout and rust out the same the same but opposite ends of the spectrum. So what I
Mm.
describe burnout, the way I describe burnout is or define it is you burn out when you are brilliant for too long. And rusting out is when you're not brilliant enough. You're not being challenged. You can do your job with your head on backwards. That's rusting out. When people aren't challenged, they can suffer rust out, which is it's a different type of burnout. And burnout is just running too hard, too long, too fast without having that reboot, kind of like with a laptop that runs slower and slower and slower the longer it goes without clearing memory and cache.
Yeah, yeah, that's a excuse me, that's a very apt example that you gave. And how exactly is this system failure, Dr. Lizard, like burnout?
Yeah, so burnout, a lot of times people think burnout can take it as a personal weakness that you're not resilient enough, that you're working too hard. But burnout, it's not just an individual, or it isn't an individual flaw. It's the failure of the system around us. When systems don't provide the psychological safety for us, or realistic expectations, or recovery rhythms, we as leaders, and if you're listening to this, you are a leader because someone is watching you, right? We can get depleted no matter how strong you are. So it isn't a personal failure that you're just not resilient enough. Different people have different levels of resiliency. That's true. Very, very true. Some people are far more resilient and they can take more, but that doesn't mean that everyone needs to be like that. Everyone is at a different scale. And we need systems around us that allow for that psychological safety to say, you know what, I need to take a break. Uh, or that boundary of that's that's a great initiative. Let me think about how we can support that instead of saying, yes, I will take that on. Let's think about what's the best way to move that forward.
Mm.
And someone feeling capable and safe enough to be able to voice that aloud.
That actually uh, makes a lot of sense, and I think especially the one line that you mentioned, that everyone has their own, like, a different capacity in there. I think that's a very important differentiation or point that has to be made cognizance of, especially in a workplace, because not everyone can take the same amount of stress or tasks, the number of tasks assigned, own capacity. um but is it because also of Dr. Lizard, if we look at the social factors in there, our previous generations, I'm not actually ranting on, the generational difference or gap in there, but in conversations and discussions, we often have heard that I worked for 18 hours every day. I traveled long distances. I did not take any leave when I used to work. How can you, let go of the precious hours and,
Yeah. So different,
um,
oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Dr. Lizard.
I was just going to say, so what I understand, some people are saying, yeah, I'm working like tremendous amount of hours. I'm traveling the globe at a moment's notice. I'm doing all this and that. And what I what I would say is, yeah, I've been there. You can do that. My resilience is actually really, really high. And it's true. Different people have different resiliency levels. So my CEO, she has a different resilience level than I do. We can be in the exact same meeting. We walk out at the end of the meeting and I'm on to my next task. And she says, because she knows her resiliency is where it is and she's very attuned to it, she'll say, I need to go for a walk or I need to go take a break. And the first time that I heard that, I was like, oh, because I felt like I was fine to go on to the next thing. And and it wasn't till I started, so some of the things that we do within where I work is we use wearables to alert us to different physiological states, like different types of stress. And so now, even though my resilience is high, I can check in on where am I in my stress level, and it may be higher than I am aware of. And so then that is a cue for me. So she has a easier cue because her resilience isn't that high. She's got that cue that tells her, "Ooh, you need to take a break." I don't have that cue. My operating system, so to speak, going back to the laptop, my operating system doesn't have that cue because my resilience is high. So I need help from my wearables to alert me to, "Hey, Lizette, you actually do need to take a break." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let me go take a break. Let me go do some meditation. Let me go do something that will then offload some of that stress." Because the the problem with especially people who have a high level of resiliency, yeah, they can travel the globe, they can work all these long hours, they feel like they're great, but in the end, there's a payment to be made for that, and your body may make that payment. So for me, it showed up as not being able to lose weight, as not being able to sleep very well. And I was struggling so hard with losing weight, and I had a exercise coach, I was going to the gym, I had a diet coach, I had all of these things, and everything that we did, I'd lose maybe a few pounds, but nothing would stick, and I was working so hard to try and lose the weight, but the problem was is it was deeply tied to my nervous system and my level of stress. And yes, my resiliency was high, but my body was holding on to that weight because of this stress. And so what I would say to those people who are, yeah, working long hours, that there's a payment to be made and have no doubt it will be made. It's just a matter of time of when that will show up in terms of heart disease, diabetes, um, high blood pressure, any number of diseases that will pop up eventually in someone's life.
Mm, it was Dr. Lizette. And as you mentioned about nervous system, and before that, I think a lot of us right now who are here, we know the feeling of being stuck. Like we are moving, but we're not really going anywhere. But the way you break down um, rusting out versus burning out, um, along with your journey, it makes it sound like two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
Um, so with that, let's bring the nervous system into this. You mentioned about it. So let's talk about healing the nervous system. Now, you talk about stress as something wired deep into our nervous system, not just a bad day at work, which is once again a very interesting point, Dr. Lissett. So, can you break down how leaders can practically rewire their nervous system so that they're not surviving stress, but they're actually changing how it manifests in their body?
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful question. Um, and how leaders can rewire their nervous system starts with that story that I had already told you about my CEO and myself. So the first thing is awareness. Awareness of your, yeah, I'm going to keep going with this laptop situation, right? Of your current operating system. What is the status of your operating system? Because in reality, what happens is stress hijacks your clarity. Stress impairs your ability to make good decisions. And the problem is you think you're making really good decisions because your ability to make those decisions is already lowered. It's almost like you've been drinking and but you think you're fine. So that's one of the things. Stress really impacts your operating system, your nervous system. And the first thing that someone needs to do is before they rewire their nervous system is to bring in that awareness. We do it within TLC with some of the wearables and some of the assessments. So awareness is key, but without the wearables, let's say you don't have any of those wearables, the first thing I would say is start to track some of your signals. Are you having
Oh,
racing thoughts? How's your breathing? Just take a pulse check sometime during the day or during a meeting or before the meeting. What's my breath like? Or am I shallow breathing? Research has shown, Sana, that, and this is something we're not even aware of, when we're so focused working on chat GPT or working on a project or a presentation that we hold our breath, and that
oh,
has a huge impact. Yeah, we're holding our breath, and so that's
that's not.
building up muscle tension. Yeah.
Mm, that's a very interesting insight actually. So holding our breath, as in we are like putting more stress on our body during those times.
Yes.
Hmm. And
Yes.
is it natural? Is it natural, like, or it's kind of in the system, or is it something our nervous system or the brain is doing, giving signal to kind of have a protection?
Yeah, so when if you think back who we were as a people, thousands of years ago, we didn't have the screens, we didn't have the computers, we didn't have all of these sort of desk work that we do that we get sort of very focused on things. We were out hunting and gathering, and when we were doing those activities, we needed to be very focused. right? When in those short bursts of where we're trying to locate or get food for ourselves, we had to be very vigilant and very focused. And so
Mm.
it's natural to kind of hold your breath, let's say before you're trying to um, get get food, collect food for yourself, right? You're feeding the rest of your system so that you can be on high alert. The problem comes we stay on high alert because in thousands of years ago, we would have maybe done the activity and then we're done. We're back to, "Oh, okay. Now I gotta take the food back to the home. We gotta prepare it and feed the family," sort of thing. But now we're on edge all the time. And with all of the advances, all of the technological advances, they have been coming exponentially. We have been exponentially growing in terms of tech. If you think of AI, where was AI 5 years ago? Now everyone has it on their phone. It's almost indispensable. We can't operate without it. But even 5 years ago, it wasn't here like it is today. Our nervous system was not designed for exponential growth the way that the technology has been growing. Our nervous system was designed for expansion. You get to a state, right? You expand, you elevate, you expand, you elevate, you expand your nervous system, right? To take on that new thing. But now with all of the advances, our nervous system is like it it's overloaded, and we're not even giving our nervous system time to adjust to the growth. We just continue to grow and grow and grow. And so, again, that's gonna have a penalty. There's gonna be a price to be paid at some point if we're not taking the opportunity to reset and
Mhm.
allow our nervous system to expand to that new level.
Yeah. Yes. And I really appreciate that you're making this very practical because honestly, stress it can really feel like intangible. Like it lives in the background, always there. The way you describe rewiring here, especially during these times, it makes it sound like something we can actually, I mean, there's still a silver lining in the cloud. There's still hope we can take control of, not just, kind of manage or cope with it.
Yeah, we can. And so part of that, after awareness, comes regulation. We have to train the body, and then you train the brain, right? A lot of times people go straight to the brain. Oh, I got to learn the new skill. And again, that's expansion, expansion, expansion. Um,
Mhm.
so we need to regulate as part of that expansion. So you can't really think your way out of dysregulation or think your way out of stress. You have to regulate to the stress. So some core practical tools involve, and this one's kind of an advanced one. I know a lot of people put this what I'm about to say out there as like, "Oh, do this." But I'm going to tell you right now what I'm about to share with you is an advanced technique. So the advanced technique is breath work, right? And the reason it's an advanced technique is because a lot of people think like, "Oh, it's just I breathe. I breathe. What's the big deal about breathing?" But the breath work is hard for people to do and grasp, but your breath work has an immediate impact because it's directly connected to your nervous system, and you're able to switch states and be able to regulate yourself directly with the breath work. So, but it's an advanced technique. So this is something like uh, exhaling
Mhm.
longer than you inhale. It could also be box breathing, which is 4 breaths in, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4. That's box breathing. You do that a few times. And what that does, it immediately impacts the vagus nerve. But another core practice, oddly enough, is humming. People who sing, again, it's because you're activating your vagus nerve. So
Yep.
singing your vocal cords activates that vagus nerve. So that's something else that people can do or hum. When my mom used to do housework. She would,
Uh-huh.
it's like, like humming all, songs, and that's something it's very
Love that.
relaxing and it's grounding for you. So, that's one, but movement is also another one, right? So getting up and just shaking, even let's say I can't move from my desk because I'm in this meeting, but just shaking, um, maybe taking a few steps in place, getting some sort
Mm.
of movement into your body is also can be a grounding,
Well,
practice.
yes. I love that, especially the humming one because I love to sing and I love to also listen to music. And oh my goodness, it's so calming. So calming, Dr. Lizard. So yeah, that I think the breath work, of course, golden and very simple yet deeply effective techniques you have shared. Um, and talking about your journey, Dr. Lizard, I mean, you have been very open about it, like struggling with sleepless nights, weight gain, and then you lost 50 pounds, and then you reclaimed your health. Um, can you share with us the breaking point, like what finally shifted things for you?
Um, I started to say it aloud, and it was, "I can't keep doing this. I just
Yeah.
can't keep doing this." And in voicing that aloud, and it was, you know, at work, there were things that had gone on. I was kind of in grief and mourning because of, some things that had happened, as happens in everyone's workplace, right? There are things that we disagree that someone does in a higher, or the direction a company takes or whatever, and there's nothing, you feel helpless. You feel helpless to do anything about it, and it for me, it became that breaking point where it really had an impact on me, and I just kept telling myself, "I can't keep doing this." I didn't love what I was doing anymore,
Mhm.
and I, uh, broke away, right? And in that breaking away started my healing. Well, my healing journey had already started before then, because I was trying to chase my health. And what ended up happening is I got ahead of it and I started leading my health instead of chasing it. And the difference is I kept chasing all of the, ooh, let me get an aura ring, right? So I know that what's going on with my sleep. And eventually, Sana, it became a piece of jewelry. Like, yeah, it was kinda nice at the beginning, but it then just became a piece of jewelry and something that I kinda wore and forgot about. So I kept chasing all of these things of, "Oh, maybe I need to do this thing. Maybe I need to get a health coach. Maybe I need to get work with a personal trainer. Maybe I need to get, tested." And it wasn't until I had all of the assessments that we do within, trust and leadership. So, and we started teaching people how to actually use the Aura Ring, how to use it um, as a leadership input, almost like the assessments that we do. And instead of just taking it as a once and done, it is something that now I monitor monthly and now daily. I know what to look for. And because I know what to look for, I am now running experiments every single day of like, "Ooh, that worked. Ooh, that didn't work for me. Oh, look, let me see if I do this for another week." And so that's got a little bit how we work with our clients is let's experiment and see what's working for you. But before we do the experimentation, what we do is we do a very deep diagnosis. And so I think that was the turning point for me was getting that deep diagnosis and understanding that A, my hormones were off. And part of the reason that my hormones were off was because I had a lot of chronic stress in my body that one of our assessments told me. And so I had to do work to get that chronic stress out of me so that I could return back to kind of baseline. And then when my system felt safe, all of the sudden, Sana, I started
Mm.
dropping weight. And it's not that I dropped a ton of weight, because in actuality, it was still a struggle, right? I was losing, everyone else was like, "Oh, I'm losing like 10, 15, 20." Like they're losing a massive amount of weight. And I was very slowly. I was like the tortoise and the hare. I was just losing weight slowly because the 57 pounds has come off, but it's come off over a matter of 3 years. So it's been 3
Wow.
years that I've been on that journey. And so it's just been this constant tweaking. And now I feel like, "Ooh, I've got the tweaking down." And so now I've got that steady progression of weight loss, and it's staying off, which is the beautiful part. Anytime I've ever lost weight before, I've lost it and then it comes right back on. But now I'm on this journey where not only am I losing it, but I am like my nervous system, right? We get people, we work a lot of times with people who are looking for promotion. And I often tell them, you know what? The promotion is the easy part. The hard part is regulating your nervous system to that new state and then getting
Yeah.
you to expand. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with my nervous system is I've gotten myself to this state where I'm losing weight and then my
Mm.
nervous system is resetting. And then I'm losing more weight and my nervous system is resetting to that new normal.
Exactly. Exactly. That was such a beautiful explanation, Dr. Lizette. Especially first of all, you mentioned about that, um, you started with everything. You have had all the resources, um, but still the execution wasn't in there, and that's I think almost every one of us we struggle with. Um, Whenever we are prepared for a change, let's say if we want to um uh go for a healthy diet, we have got everything. We know what we wish to eat, coaches and dietitians and all that stuff, um healthy meals, cookbooks and everything, all the materials, but the execution kind of, is where it's a slippery slope. So I think that particular point you emphasized is a very crucial one. Secondly, when it comes to weight loss, I 100%, or maybe if there's some other percentage more than this, agree that it doesn't drastically happen. It doesn't happen drastically until and unless there's some kind of, artificial intervention in there, as we are seeing nowadays. But 3 years, you lost 57 pounds, and you are still in that process. I think, it's a brilliant example of how weight loss will take its time, but the results will be sustainable. It won't be that, you lost uh, 20 pounds within 3 months, and after that, in the next 3 months, you once again gain around 30 pounds. So the output is nothing. So I think that's a brilliant, brilliant example, Dr. Lizette. Really
Yeah. Yeah.
inspiring.
Hopefully people learn from that because yeah, it it doesn't have to be a struggle, and I think that's what I've learned on my journey is it's about persevere it's like anything, right? It's about perseverance. And yeah, I've actually done some of the artificial ways to try and help me lose weight. And guess what, Sana? It didn't really work for me. Oddly enough, it didn't work for me. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to do this. And so I instead went to my system. And now I'm seeing with all of the interventions that I'm doing, and it's this persistence and continuing to have, and that really is the hard part for all of us on this journey of life is to persevere in what we're doing because we see, oh, so and so, got to, whatever position and I want to get there too, right? But you have going back to this resilience, you are a unique creature with unique capabilities, unique superpowers. And I think that the journey of life for all of us is to tune into who you are as a person and tune
Mm,
into what works for you. Because once we figure out what works for you, then it's like where I am right now, where it's easy. It is easy for me to continue to lose weight. I'm not on a restrictive diet. I'm not monitoring my calories. I am noting what I'm eating, but I'm not monitoring my calories and the weight is coming off because
Mhm.
everything else is now become a habit. And that's the hard thing for us. And oftentimes we need a partner. We need someone to walk with us on that journey to keep us accountable. And that's been really helpful for us because it's we all want the quick win, but in actuality, to be successful on this journey of life, it is a tale of perseverance.
Agreed. Agreed, Dr. Lizard. And before we wrap up, one thing that you emphasize is that achievement without boundaries leads to collapse. And it's kind of has been once again in the system, corporate cultures. Boundaries, they're often seen as weakness. And for entrepreneurs, it becomes like multifold challenge. So, how do you challenge leaders to redefine success without sacrificing their sustainability?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And if you notice, some of the most successful business people, CEOs, aren't the ones who are putting themselves out there or doing all the work. They're the ones who um, say no. They're very clear about what they say yes to and what they say no to. And they're not ashamed of it because each no that you say no to a particular project, is something it creates opening for the yes that you can say for the particular thing that you wanna move forward with. That's gonna improve your career or your life or whatever that be. And oftentimes what I see with especially a lot of people who leave corporate and they want to start their own business, well, they've never healed. Yes, maybe you were in a toxic environment, but there's some healing that needs to happen there within you. And oftentimes what I see is if they don't have the boundaries in corporate, guess what? When you set up your business, they're not going to have the boundaries there either. And what ends up happening is I'll put the boundaries when I XYZ. But again,
Mhm.
penalty to be paid at some stage. So what I'd say is a lot of those successful people already have boundaries. And your no isn't is actually something that can help you say yes to things down the road that are really going to help you push the needle towards where you're trying to go. So we have to stop looking at, um, and again, it's because our nervous systems are so overloaded. We're not even thinking about how is this, how, if I say yes to this, how is this going to impact my career long term? We're not even taking the moment to think about that. We're just saying, yes, yeah, I'll do it because I think it'll help me, on the next thing. But we're not really strategic about it. And so putting in those boundaries, putting in the boundaries of, yeah, I can get to that. I'll get to that tomorrow because it's now 5 or 6 or whatever it is. And that'll be the first thing. Or bringing in language that lets your, and here's a tool I'll drop for people, right? Of, yeah, I'd be happy to take that on. Which of the things XYZ that I'm working on would you like me to take off my plate so that I can take that on? Right? So if we take something on, we also take something off. Yeah. So it's tit for tat, right?
Yeah. Brilliant. And Dr. Lizard, of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and get a hold to all the resources that you're offering, what would be the easiest way?
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn is the great equalizer. So it's global. You could reach me on LinkedIn. We also have a website. And we have a leadership stages assessment. I'm happy to drop the link in the show notes for your listeners, but LinkedIn really is the best place to get me, or otherwise you can find me on trustandleadership.com.
Superb, superb. I'll make sure to have all the links for all of you listeners to connect with Dr. Lizard and also get a hold of all the resources that she's providing for you. And thank you so much, Dr. Lizard, because First of all, your journey, your story, it shouts out loud that success without sustainability is just another form of collapse waiting to happen. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sana.
And listeners, as we wrap up today's conversation, um, I would love to say that burnout isn't weakness, it isn't inevitable. It's a system failure, one that can be rewired. And what I take from this is that healing isn't just about bouncing back. It's about reprogramming how we live, work, and lead. And that means we don't have to always choose between good health and great achievement. We can actually claim both. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of BizBlend. And until next time, please remember leadership starts with the nervous system you are living in. So, take care of it, and it will take care of everything else for you. Thank you.